Ralph, thank you so much for chatting to me as we start this new year. It's certainly going to be an interesting year on the political front with the elections upcoming, but luckily we're not here to talk about the elections or politics. From a governance perspective, what would you advise needs to be top of mind for boards in 2024?
Okay. Parmi, I think the word sustainability is appropriate. I'm going to split it into two, though. The large companies, say the top 40 in terms of the JSE, are going to continue on the road they've been on for a while. It's sustainability, it's all about environmental impact, it's all about social impact. A lot of the projects they're on and are being monitored are all in place already, and they just have to make sure that they follow through on them. My concern sits with the mid-cap, small-cap, and micro-cap companies, for want of another definition. Sustainability for them, for me, is about sustainability of the entity. It doesn't mean that they have to let go of impact on environment or anything of that nature, but if they don't sustain the entity, it's going to make no difference at the end of the day. So I think boards, in my view, have to do two things. First of all, they've got to revisit their strategies. Are the companies at the right size? Are they going to survive through this economic period? We've been through a tough period, and it's going to continue for the foreseeable future. So are their strategies right? They need to monitor and oversee those and ensure that implementation takes place. So it's a robust discussion about the strategies. It's absolute focus on the implementation. In order to do that is the second leg. Have you got the right board? Have you got the right skills on the board? And I think boards, again, have to sit down, look at everyone around the table, and ensure that everyone is there, adding value, enough time committed to the entity to ensure that these things get done. I think the problem is that companies get comfortable, directors get onto the boards, and they tend to, I call it wafting along. Tick the boxes, not really committing themselves to actually knowing. It's serious times, and I believe it means serious action at the end of the day.
So I have follow-up questions, and I'll break it down into your two areas that you identified. The first one, the larger organizations. It's interesting that you used the word sustainability, and I like that, because I feel ESG became a bit of a buzzword in the last 2 years. Yeah. And every time someone asked me about ESG, I said to them, but it's nothing new. It's sustainability. It already exists. And I mean, King 4 already talks to the 6 capitals. What advice would you give to boards out there grappling with the concepts of sustainability versus ESG versus the 6 capitals? What should they be looking at? What should they be following?
Yeah, for me, again, I think they're totally integrated. I mean, you go through King, everything's covered inside King. So it almost became a buzzword. And I think you used that terminology of impact on environment. It's been there for a while. We've been considering it. Social impact, corporate social responsibility, it's all there. Governance covers it all. King 4's in place. It's best practice. It's how you adapt the governance for your entity, which is more important at the end of the day. So I'm not sure it's anything new other than possibly a little more focus to say, hold on, we've got to report on this. We've got to take a view on the impact we're having, and if it is that serious, what are we doing about it, and a bit more focus from boards. But more than that, I don't think it's doing anything more than focusing the mind. I see it as exactly the same thing. I agree with you 100%.
Absolutely, and I think it'll be interesting to see the disclosure that's coming out of these large corporates, especially with the new IFRS Sustainability 1 and 2 standards that have been released. I mean, that's going to be people trying it out, and we'll have to see how that evolves over time.
Yeah. My fear, again, is that, the pendulum swings from one end right to the other, where we go overboard. And large corps, and I don't sit on any top 40 boards, so I must be careful what I say here, but I battle reading integrated reports today. I think they've become bloated. I think there's information in there which is there because you're told you've got to have it, rather than succinct, to the point, say what you've got to say, put everything in place, and then everybody, investors, can read it. Stakeholders can read it and fully understand it. So I hope that with all the new standards coming out, it doesn't just result in bloated integrated reports at the end of the day.
I mean, that really talks to that whole conformance, performance debate, right? Boards are spending so much time ticking boxes, trying to comply with all sorts of rules and regulations out there that the element of monitoring performance of the organization maybe gets missed.
Yeah, and it permeates through the culture of the organization, because every report that you ask for, somebody in the organization, an executive or subordinates, are running around putting this report together. And if it's not adding value, we really have to take a hard look at it and say, why are we doing it? Or can we shrink it to, just an understandable, a monitoring of a 3-year trend graph will tell you, a lot more than 4 pages of writing about what you're doing and what you're not doing. If it becomes an issue, sure, you have to become a bit more granular.
And then moving on to the smaller entities, I mean, you mentioned that basically it's about sustainability of their business, survival in the current context. And I know I said we wouldn't talk politics, but with the upcoming elections and possible changes in government, obviously there's an impact on the external environment when it comes to infrastructure, energy, water, all these things that business needs in order to survive. What advice would you give smaller businesses as we enter this election here?
I'd say, first and foremost, you have to sit back and consider those risks. So it has to be on your risk register. Again, I think the focus on the risk register needs to be on the critical elements again. And we always say we do it, we scale it with impact and probability. Well, I think there's reality coming into this. So let's put it on there and let's understand how we're going to survive it. Cash for smaller entities, cash is king. You have a drop-off in turnover for 2 months with some of the small to micro caps and smaller businesses. It can put you into serious contravention of your covenants with the bank, which then has a whole lot of implications. So I think it has to be looked at. It has to a conservative view, and that's why, as much as right sizing is maybe not the right word, but I think companies have to anticipate and potentially right-size their businesses in anticipation of negativity coming through at the end of the day, because it's very close to reality.
So thanks so much for your words of wisdom. Is there any final sort of closing statement you'd like to make in this regard?
I think, to try and sum it up for the smaller entities is just get back to basics of the business. Because that's where it sits. And if you are back at the basics and being hard on it and are being hard on people doing what they should be doing, you will come through this successfully at the end of the day.
Thank you so much, Ralph.